Hey, thanks for watching the JRL Golf Academy YouTube channel. In this episode, I was able to interview Gina Umeck, who is the women's head coach at the CSUN University. In this episode, we talked a lot about the differences between junior golf and then playing collegiate golf. We also talked a lot about the differences within D1, D2, D3. So go ahead. There was a lot of great questions on the Live with Leary here. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Getting you guys. There she is, the one and only Miss Gina.
Hey,
Hey, what's going on?
what's up?
You good?
Do we have enough light? Can you see me okay?
Let's see. I can see you fine. I can see you just fine. How you doing, Gina?
Hi, guys. Good.
Yeah, we got a bunch of we're getting a bunch of viewers in here right now. And hey, Keith Morgan, what's up, man? Thanks for coming back in. A bunch of these people were here earlier watching when we had Greg on, so they're excited to hear from you. And most of these people, most of the viewers here, Gina, they're either coaches, and there's a few of the juniors also in here I can see. But this is an important topic that isn't really discussed, or I don't know if people don't have access to a coach like yourself that's in the system, you know, a head coach at a D1 school. And I think it was a great topic to have an idea of what goes on, right? We coach these juniors and then,
Yeah.
like, what's the next step? So that's what you're here for.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's really hard to get access to the right information when you're a junior player. Like, you don't have somebody telling you what the steps are, and you don't have, really any guidance as to what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know about anybody else, but my high school didn't have a person for that. So I'm really happy to share this. I wish I could do it more often and just kind of give some guidance to, the players and the parents who really don't know what to do. My dad was in the same boat, and he had to really do some digging just to kind of figure out the basics. So we don't want it to be that complicated. It shouldn't be that hard.
There we go. Hey, real quick, everybody viewing, thanks again for tuning in live with Leary. She's actually the one that came up with that slogan name. So thank you very much.
We're gonna have to go bigger now. This is like Dan Patrick stuff. This is like Live with Leary. We gotta add some more words or something.
Right? I don't. You know how simple I am. So this is good enough. Full disclosure, everybody, especially with Gina, I do not want to have her violate any sort of NCAA rules, because there's a lot of NCAA rules. But when she's going to be answering these questions, they're going to be based on not necessarily what she does specifically, but what coaches as a whole are doing. So maybe you can explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, John. This conversation or discussions like this, or strictly like informational in terms of the general population of college schools and college coaches. At no point will I or am I able to talk about CSUN in particular, because at that point it becomes like a recruiting conversation, right? Which is in violation of the rules. So I can talk about, we can field some questions, and I can talk about, schools in general, or how I've seen other coaches do things, or, what I experienced in college, things like that. But I can't answer questions in the light of specific to CSUN or what I particularly do.
Yeah.
So, I'm just going to have to speak from, more of a general perspective, but I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of information that, comes out of it anyway.
So we just apologize. Like if Gina kind of pauses after I ask something, it's because, we have to protect her as much as anybody, because she's taken her sweet, precious time to actually help us out with this. So I greatly appreciate it, first and foremost. Okay.
Oh, anytime, John.
You got it. Cool. So let's see here. I think there was already a question in here. And let's just start off with it. Innovate 18 golf performance. Keith, how will NCAA ruling on spring sport athletes change your recruiting?
Okay, so that's another thing I can't comment on right now.
Okay. Fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yeah, the NCAA just made, they made sort of a preamble decision like a couple of weeks ago when all this went down, and then last night they made kind of like the nail in the coffin decision. I can't comment on that.
Let's leave it
but
there.
Yeah, I can't comment on that. I'm sorry.
We're gonna find out soon enough. Don't worry.
We'll find out. Yeah.
We're gonna find out. Let me ask you this.
Sorry, Keith.
What's the difference? This is from my own perspective because I want to be able to make sure that I'm always giving my players the best advice. What's the difference between junior golf and, let's say, junior golf and collegiate golf? Like, what's the change? I mean, you've got your senior that's about ready. They're playing AJG, they're traveling. They're doing everything they're supposed to do. You now have or colleges have their eyes set on them. They're going to college. What's the difference between junior golf and then that first tournament that they're going to play in a college event?
Yeah, I get this question a lot. And the more I think about it, the more I sort of throw it back at whoever's asking it, in the way that if you're the kind of person who currently in high school sort of has like a regimen and a schedule, and you can be involved in a lot of things, but you balance your time already, and you know how to prioritize already, you aren't going to have a hard transition. You're probably going to, it'll be pretty smooth. If you're kind of, wishy-washy about maybe you like golf, I mean, we have a lot of different hobbies. I had a lot of different hobbies. Like, you don't have to enter college wanting to be on the LPGA or the PGA Tour. But if you are sort of more kind of, I guess the word would be nebulous in your schedule, where you just kind of, you don't have a lot of regiments, then it's going to be a bigger adjustment. Okay. To the point where it kind of becomes a lifestyle. Division I sports anymore is very much a lifestyle than it is a hobby or really just a sport. So that's kind of how I would answer that, John. It would be, okay, the answer depends on how you are living your life now and how you've been living your life in high school, whether or not you're going to have a big sort of wake-up call.
Yeah. So the time management is obviously a key player in that. Like you said, depending on if the player is very good at time management or not, is what's it's going to impact them differently when they go to college.
Yeah, and practices I think are different. Like, kind of going off of the same vein of the same question, different vein.
Yeah.
Practices are, I would say, from high school to colleges, those are the ones, the things that are going to be more, maybe the word is intense, maybe the word is more, more of a sense of purpose in practice, where every day, and this is across the board, this isn't really just my program at all. Every day, you want to be different when you walk off of that practice ground than when you stepped on it.
Right.
And that's the big thing that I see across the board is, I played high school golf, and, you're out there, and most players aren't super structured at that point. They don't really know how to be yet. So, that would be probably the biggest bullet point where I'd say, yeah, this is going to be different for you.
I gotcha. Richie PJ had asked, and I might have to reword this a little bit, but what's the time commitment your players put in practice and outside of practice? So let me ask you this. How much time does the NCAA allow Division I golfers to practice during season, and when is the season?
Right. Good question. So in the fall and the spring, because we have a split season, right?
Right.
Fall is what they call the non-championship segment, okay? And then spring is the championship segment because that's when your NC2A championship is for golf.
Okay.
Non-championship segment, so fall, September and October, you have 20 hours a week. Okay, I have 20 hours that I can allocate to practice, weights, team meetings, education, guest speakers, blah, blah, blah. You know, all of that. I have to fit that in 20 hours per week.
Okay.
And that's every Division I school. Then when you go into our November, December, January segment, half of January, it goes into the 8-hour segment. And only 4 of those 8 hours can be golf. Okay,
so like working out or something like that would be
it used to be 2 hours, and they called it skill instruction. I think they still call it skill instruction. It used to be 2 hours of skill instruction, and then, but you know, unless you're a football team, you're not going to work out for 6 hours a week.
You're right.
So that just recently changed to 4 hours of skill instruction, and you know, we fill up, or I can't talk about us in particular, but most schools will have workouts 3 times a week. So that's 3 hours.
On those days, are you able to, you know, you said your time frame. Can you is that like you can use any of the 7 days of the week, or is it like a Monday through Friday? How does the NCAA allow you guys to break that up?
Yeah, so you have to define your week. So you can define your week in a couple of different ways, from Sunday to Saturday. So basically within a 7-day period, there has to be 1 off day.
Okay.
1 mandatory off day.
Okay.
And yeah, there are coaches who go Monday through Friday. There are coaches who will go, you know, a little shorter from Monday to Friday, and then they'll make a practice on Saturday mandatory. A lot of times it's easier to get golf courses on a Sunday afternoon for some colleges. So you can break it up, but you have to have that mandatory 1 day off in a 7-day period.
Man, everything you said so far just relates to time management, really. I mean, any of these kids that are looking to play collegiately, it's just your time management is so far going to be your best friend, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Let's see here. What can I do to prepare myself for college?
Let's see.
Time management. Get that under control.
Time management.
Yeah. How about physically? Do you see a lot of the players now, or how much emphasis do you see on physically working out with colleges and stuff like that? Does that play a big role into it?
Yeah, I think the Tiger Woods, you know, kind of generation, or the rise of Tiger Woods, I think just gave a big kick in the butt to the entire industry of golf in terms of working out and being fit. I would say this as a blanket statement. I would say I don't know of a program that does not do any fitness whatsoever.
There you go.
So it's part of the equation for sure.
Okay.
You have a lot of 36-hole days anymore. So there's tournaments where you're playing 36-18.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, I don't know if you can ever prepare for the 36-hole day. You know, there are programs that practice playing 36 holes, and you know, it's just like one of those things where, to be quite honest, I think you just have to learn mentally to push through.
Yeah.
I don't know that you ever really do get used to a 36-hole day. I mean, I haven't.
When you realize you only play 22 holes out of 36, And you're like,
Right.
holy smokes.
I need a granola bar. Where's the Gatorade? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point
But
there.
I
You know,
see
that's
I
a big
see that
point.
as a concern. I see that as a concern out of a lot of players coming up. It's like 36 holes. Holy cow. You'll get used to it to
Yeah,
some
you do.
degree. I don't know that you need to go out and like, do 2-a-days or whatever. I've never seen in general terms, I've never seen a correlation between practicing 36 holes and it actually getting easier. I think, like I said, mentally, you have to be prepared to be tired,
Yeah.
and knowing that you are tired, being able to deal with the situation at the time and being able to deal with that adversity, it's always going to be there. There's always going to be a time when you're tired or you're, you don't know what to do, or, it's just another, I think it's just another avenue of adversity, you
Right,
know.
right. Um, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, Gina played at UCLA, I played at USC, and that first tournament, I remember still the first tournament I played in was, wow, man, that 36, the first day, and this was, we didn't have any push carts then. It was all carrying a big hoofer bag,
Right.
right? Big
Yeah.
hoofer bag with like baggy clothes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that brings back some good memories there.
Walking up the hills at Satakoy.
That's it, man. You get some strong legs. How many events are in the championship segment? We had a question here. Or how many? Let me rephrase it this way. How many? Is there a limit of how many tournaments a team can play each season?
Yeah.
How,
There's
how many?
caps on all that stuff. There's
What's
caps
the?
on all that stuff. So, 10 regular season events, and then you have your postseason.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
it all comes down to days of competition. So sometimes that's going to fluctuate,
Okay.
but all that stuff's regulated really tightly, just like weekly hours and in season, out of season things. That's a big deal.
All part of the plan, right?
Part of the plan
It's all
in the
part of the plan.
matrix.
Oh, perfect, Richie. You did
What
have some
do you
questions. Somebody
think?
answered it.
Yeah,
Richie
that's a
had
good
asked,
one.
Richie, what do you think the difference in scoring from junior golf to college golf? Great question.
Yeah. I don't see a huge difference between. So the AJGA has really evolved, right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't see a huge difference between like a lot of the local golf tours and the AJGA in terms of difficulty.
Yeah.
I don't see a huge difference between the courses that are played on a mid-major level versus a Power 5 level. So Power 5s are the UCLA's, USC's. Mid-majors are the Big East, Mountain West Conference. I don't see a lot of difference. I really don't. The differences that I see have more to do with, I would say, condition, of course, maybe prestige of venue, things like that. I don't see a lot of difference. Like, you're not suddenly playing like some whopper 6,700-yard course. Everything's within reason.
Okay.
So I think kind of like chiming back to that other question of what can I do to prepare for college golf, play longer tees,
Yeah.
right? Play the blue tees, get out there, and challenge yourself. It's going to be easier when you get to college. That step's going to be, you're going to be so much better prepared if you just kind of over prepare, right?
Right.
But yeah, I think that's a question that I don't see a lot of disparity between the levels.
Gotcha. Now let me ask you this. Keith had asked here, general advice for players choosing between multiple schools. Are you able to answer that?
The right fit.
There you go. Maybe
The
based
right
on
fit.
like, from my own experience, like one of my players, she's being recruited by numerous schools, but honestly, she understands that she doesn't want to play professionally. She's
Right.
playing really well right now, so she's getting a lot of offers for schools. But she is she wants to be a marine biology major. So that kind of narrowed up the number of schools that really, like, she's like, if they don't have it, I'm not going there. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Going to what Gina's saying, the right fit.
The right fit and how I would answer that question, because Keith, I think you asked it, is the player has to really define what's important to them.
Yeah.
Because if they do that, the choice is going to be easy.
Yeah.
It's hard I think it's hard to have that self-awareness, maybe a little bit at age 17, but not always, right?
Yeah.
You have to decide, you have like 25,000 variables, right?
Right.
And you have to decide which ones are the most important ones to you, right? So for me, I can talk about my past college experience. For me, I really, really, really needed to connect with the coach. Like, that was huge for me.
Right.
The schools I was considering were kind of similar academically. The second thing that I wanted, for whatever reason, we do not know, I wanted a pretty campus. It had to be pretty.
Everybody's
I wanted to see trees. I wanted to see trees. I wanted to see, like, that was a thing for me. It was like the aesthetics of the campus.
Hey,
and whatever it is, it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? If it's important to you, that's what you need to go and make sure you get, right? When you're considering like 900 variables, there's so many different things, that, well, this is good about that school and that's good about that school. Okay, well, which one of those actually really, really matters to you? Like, narrow it down to 3 things, right?
Yeah. Keith said SC had no chance. Yeah, we didn't have many trees. We had a lot of buildings. So let me ask you about this. How do colleges, how do they determine, like, travel team? Because only 5 people travel, right?
Right.
Normally, right? How do schools, have you heard, how do some schools, not necessarily yourself, but what have you heard about other schools, how they do their qualifying process to get the top 5 to travel?
Right. Great question. So there's a spectrum from, there are programs who exclusively pick the team. Okay, so think about it in terms of like a soccer team where you don't really have quantifiers going into games. It's more like the coach is kind of, evaluating what they see, and then they just kind of pick, right?
Kind of like a pickup game in basketball, right? Like
right.
You're picking your team. Because I know he's good, and I know yeah.
Right. That's the one end of the spectrum, right?
Okay.
The picking, so they'll pick all 5 players.
Right.
So then I've seen all the way to the other side of the spectrum of just pure qualifying, right? Okay. So before a tournament, the team will together play 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds, and you just add them up, and then the lowest 5 scores are the ones who travel.
Okay. Fair. So
that's the other side of the spectrum, right? Somewhere in the middle, that also exists.
Yeah.
So you have programs that might qualify 3 spots and pick 2, or qualify 4 spots and pick 2, or qualify all year long, and then at the end for postseason they'll pick. Okay. So again, like, kind of going back to Keith's question, which is, how do you choose between schools? Envision yourself in each of these scenarios, right? Envision yourself in the situation where the coach is picking, or envision yourself in the scenario where it's just numbers, right? So I think the most important part of this talk will be bringing it back to that, right?
Yeah.
Bringing it back to, tailoring it to what the juniors are really wondering about right now.
Yeah. That's a good point. A question that here's a question for you. How many players do you generally have on a team?
Teams have anywhere between, we've seen the bare minimum of like 5 or 6 to 10, 11. I don't see a lot of 12s out there.
Okay.
On the guys' side, maybe a little bit. You'll
Okay.
have some bigger numbers.
I got a question for you. How many scholarships are available, say, women's golf versus men's golf in D1? On a team. So is there
Okay.
like a cap?
So
I know-
NC2A maximum. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's regulated very heavily, obviously.
Yes.
On the men's side, I believe they have 5.4.
Okay.
Wait a minute. 4.5?
I think it's 4.5.
I'm not a math code. 4.5? I think it was
it is
5.4 in. So I coached Division II as my first coaching job, and I think maybe I'm thinking in D2 terms. In women's golf, it's 6. Yeah, 4.5 sounds right for the guys. I don't think it's 5.4. I think 5.4 is actually the women's maximum in D2.
Okay.
But the women's maximum in D1 is 6.
Oh.
So that's the maximum number that that any Division I institution can have.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
So
and it used to be 6 full rides, and now it's 6. I believe 6 cost of attendance, which is like a full scholarship is tuition, room, board, and books, and cost of attendance kind of like throws in, living, a little bit of living expenses. So that's one thing that has changed. It's gone from 6 fulls to 6 like cost of attendance.
Okay, I gotcha. Let me ask you this. Or actually, did I get Richie's? How many players the team usually? Yeah. Let me ask you this. What do coaches typically look for when they're going out and recruiting players? Is that something you can answer? Or
that is something I can answer.
Okay.
In general terms, coaches are really already informed about, scores and numbers and things like that, statistics and the player that they're looking at. They already kind of know where you're at in terms of ability level and the scores that you're shooting. And when coaches are out recruiting, it's not really about what you're shooting that day necessarily. And I think this is like one of the biggest things that's on a lot of junior players' minds is that, they might have a bad hole and because a coach happens to be watching you at that time, they, get really nervous and, oh my God, did I blow my chances? And
it's over.
And coach, yeah, no. And coaches are really more looking at like body language and do they carry over, a bad hole to the next hole? Can a coach visibly see that, the player can a coach visibly see what kind of attitude the player's carrying, all the way from the side. It's much less about numbers and it's much more about kind of character assessment.
So attitude matters.
So attitude matters. Attitude matters a lot to coaches. Yeah.
Richie asks, how much do you really look at junior golf scoreboard and rankings?
How much do coaches look at rankings?
Yeah. Would you say that?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Richie, maybe I'll take a stab at that. I go, if you're not ranked high enough, I'd say that coaches probably don't know who you are. So, the coaches that I've seen, they only have a limited amount of time. So they're not going to necessarily like go seek out somebody that's not ranked because, you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. They've got so much of a limited amount of time that they got to go to their best resource. And I would imagine from some of the recruiters I've talked to and stuff like that, that they're looking at the junior golf scoreboard ranking. That's what I've heard. So
Yeah. And I think it depends on institution
Mm-hmm.
because I think when you get, if you aren't in an elite institution, I think you have to start looking more at character. Coaches have to kind of look at character things more so than number things,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and even you know, it's sort of like I would answer that question saying it's kind of like what range do you fall in versus like am I two places ahead of so and so? You know,
Yeah.
I've seen coaches at elite coaches who bypass the best player because of like you know they don't think it's going to be a good fit. Like
Yeah.
so, a different player who might be lower ranked but is in the same general, I guess, bracket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So how I would
Yeah.
answer that question is isn't necessarily like what's my like particular place in the rankings, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
but what kind of general bracket am I in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'd say, yeah,
Again, and this isn't Gina speaking. This is me speaking. From what I've seen, I mean, I also run a junior golf tour with my partner Dan Martin, and we run nationally ranked events here in California. Um, you know, the reason we'd set that up is so that kids can be brought forth, so that they become ranked, so that coaches that's our intention, so that coaches can find them on a map. If they're not on a map, it's kind of hard to just say, well, this kid over here in Wyoming shooting 67 every day, but we've never seen him in a tournament, and he had nothing to be measured by. So he or she, I think you need to be able to. The rankings are important so that there's some sort of something to be measured by, right? I can't just simply just go, yeah, he's good or she's good, right? I need to see it on paper, and that's why we started our tour. Let's see here. How do I know if I'm good enough to play a program? I don't know if you can answer that.
I think people a lot of times are looking for like a numerical range.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Here, hang on.
I'd say,
I think I can answer that. I would say
yeah,
whatever school you're looking at, why don't you go look at their number 1 to number 5 scoring averages, and then whatever you're shooting, see
yeah,
if you're good enough to. That's as a coach. Now, speaking as a coach, a golf instructor coach,
yeah,
that's how I tell my students, hey, do you go pick a school that you really want to go to and see what their scoring average is, especially their number 5 person, and if you're good enough, if your scoring average is as good as that, if not better, then you have a chance to go there. But I mean, you
yeah,
could be shooting even par right now, realistically, and not be able to play in 2 of the major colleges here in Southern California, UCLA and USC. You'd be sitting on the bench. You wouldn't even. But at another school, you'd be a top 2, top 3 player. So that all
yeah.
depends. That's how I would look at it. Am I good enough to play? That's what I would look at. Are my scores good enough? Let's see here. I got a question for you. What's the day in the life of a collegiate golfer?
Day in the life. So I think this is going to be something that's also surprisingly the same generally. So day in the life, depending on when you have workouts, right? Most programs will have them 3 times a week. So if you take let's just say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Let's take a Monday. So you might have workouts in the morning, you might have workouts at the end of the day, but somewhere in there you've got a workout for an hour. Then you've got class, okay? You can have anywhere from 1 class to 3 classes usually that you'll fit in there. It's, and this is either the morning or the afternoon, right? You got class in the morning or you got class in the afternoon. Sometimes you don't have class. There's, times you can end up with no class on Friday or things like that. That happens. And then for whatever other segment of the day, whether it's the afternoon or the morning, you have practice for 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a workout in there, school in there, golf in there. And sometimes if you're really lucky, you get study hall at the end of the day. So that is also a thing too.
I was the study hall kid because I just wasn't that good at studying. So,
yeah. It's typical for freshmen just because we talk about that routine so much and we're talking about the regimen and the structure. Yeah. It's typical for freshmen to kind of mandatory get the study hall only to create habits. Some coaches will forego that if they have a freshman coming in who's really, really strong academically. They might, be able to skip out on study hall. Everybody's kind of different.
Yeah.
But you still do have those kind of guarantees in there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, from the sounds of it, it's time consuming. And I could speak from that, from just possible, from also real life experience when I played in college. So it is very time consuming, but it's very rewarding as well. Let's see here. Isn't it true that college golfers have to be extremely self-motivated and organized academically because of the amount of classes that are missed?
Good question. Something that varies according to level of program, I really believe.
Okay.
Division II puts a premium on really not missing class.
Okay.
Division III I know less about, but I'm pretty darn sure that's even more extreme in Division III, where you're a student athlete in that order, big time, right?
Yeah.
In Division I, this is where I see, so like John, you and I playing at UCLA, tournaments were longer then. We had 18, 18, 18. We were flying to Vanderbilt, and like you miss an entire week, right?
Yeah.
In the elite levels, of schools, you just kiss a whole week goodbye for one tournament. In the mid majors, less so. You'll play 36-18 a lot. A lot of times you're driving to the event, so you'll miss a lot less. And I think now, as I compare kind of mid-major schools to what probably John, you and I did, I think we missed a heck of a lot more class. Gosh, I remember some spring semesters, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even going to class. Like, I'm hardly even there. You'll have like a once a week class. It's like, I don't even feel like I'm in this class.
Yeah. The teacher sees
and that. Right. Yeah. And it's just, that got difficult, but I would answer that question by saying it really has to do with the level of school that you're at. Like the Power Fives, you're going to be missing a lot. Prepare to be studying on planes all of the time. Prepare to be taking midterms on the road, tests on the road, things like that.
Yeah.
For the mid-major schools, less so. And then for Division II, much less so. Division III, it's basically academics. You're there for academics and you play golf on the side.
Yeah.
Gosh, I have a coach or a friend who's a D3 coach who I didn't just insult her. But it's just what you buy into. It's just the fact of it's the model of D3, right? It's the model of D2, and it's the model of D1 is you got to know what you're walking into.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob Laskin said here, I hope the juniors are listening to this because this is fantastic. In 26 years of teaching, I've never had a coach call me and say, how's the kid swing? It's always, what kind of kid is this? Thank you for doing this. No problem, Bob. Yeah, I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. A lot of the coaches are more interested in, hey, like, what's this person about, more so than, I mean, if they're calling up the coaches already and asking about it, the kid's probably pretty good already. but probably they do want to know about what the person is like as a person, not just necessarily a golfer.
Sorry, it sort of cut out just then. What was the question?
Oh, no, it was just Bob Laskin was saying that, in 26 years of teaching that he had never had a coach call him and go, hey, man, how's this kid swing? It would always be the question of like, hey, what's this kid as a person? Which
right.
I think there's a lot of validity to that because, there has to be some synergy on a golf team, and I'm speaking from experience right now. This isn't Gina speaking. I was able to play at USC. If you don't have synergy on a team, it becomes very difficult to operate. And you hear about the chemistry always. I always hear it in other sports, team sports. That's the thing about college golf is that it is a team sport. It is individual, but it's weird, right? It's also a team sport. So the team dynamic is very, very important. And the kids that colleges are recruiting, they're, it's tough to just have one outlier or something like that. But, character counts as much as the scores. If you've got scores and character, you're looking really good. Hey, Brady, how you doing? Let's see. What are college coaches asking the junior golfers? What are college coaches asking the junior golfer swing coaches? I could speak on that. Would that be all right? Since
yes,
I'm a
please
coach.
do.
Yeah. It comes back to what I just spoke about. Character, how much they've developed over, let's just say, over the last 1 to 2 to 3 years. They ask that often. And I'll back that up with like junior golf scoreboard ranking. That was an interesting thing that I did find is that, I had a kid that was literally shooting in the 90s, and then he's now shooting, or he was then shooting into like low 8, like averaging 80. And the college recruiter was very interested in him because he goes, that's just trending right there. Not that he was, he wasn't going to help any D2 or D1 schools at 80, but they really they like to see that trend. Like, okay, well, this person's getting better, right? So that was a surprise to me that I wasn't aware of as a coach. But it gives the kids hope. It gave this kid a lot of confidence when he knew that, recruiters were looking at him, and then obviously colleges as well. So just to answer that question, Lee. Okay, I'm in the house. Should I reach out to
there was a good one. There was a good one earlier. What age do you start looking at a potential recruit? I thought that was a good question. Richie Rich PGA. Yeah. Yeah. So I think this is one of those things where like the pendulum swings, in one direction, then it swings in the other. And I think at one point, not long ago, the trend was like out of the womb, like verbally committed, like at age 5, that was sort of the trend. And what I'm seeing now is that has ended up really kind of burning a lot of not just coaches, but prospects as well. There's a lot that happens between the age of 15 and 18, or 14 and 18 for that matter, depending on how early you're committing. And I think that's a really volatile time just in life, period. And a lot of changes that take place in that period of time, I think maybe the right fit at age 14 now is not the right fit at age 17. And I think the really early commits, I'm starting to see the pendulum kind of like swing back a little bit, where the really early commits aren't being made anymore in general, because there's been a lot of it's a volatile time in life. And I think that has kind of showed its head in terms of just misfits, shall we call it, or a wrong fit, right?
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a real good question. That's a really good question. Rick Dowling asked, should I reach out to introduce myself to coaches even if it's before the rules allow?
I just wouldn't do that because
Okay.
you're being an example to, I don't know if you're coaching junior players, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't intentionally breach rules or put the coach in a position to breach rules. Hopefully, the coach would do the right thing and say that no, we can't talk right now. But I'm not sure how college coaches would view an instructor who's knowingly breaching the rules.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if this is a coach or like I can't quite. I'm not. I'm sorry, Rick. I don't know exactly who you are, but maybe are they talking about like maybe my guess is like he's talking about
a phone call
or even like an email just to introduce yourself, to just get on the radar for coaches. Like what's the earliest you can do that? Let's go with that. What's the earliest you could do that? I mean, could my son who's 11 right now reach out to a coach?
I mean, he can try, but the coach has got to return that email with a reply saying, "I'm sorry, we can't speak until da 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 da."
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's done all the time. You know, emails. Coaches receive emails from prospects that are very young, and do I think there's an advantage or a disadvantage to doing that? A lot of people want to try to get ahead of the curve. I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
But serious consideration, I don't know if it starts quite that early.
Okay. Not sure if you can answer this. If you can't, just tap your nose 2 times. And do you think camps are a good place to meet a coach? So I know UCLA, USC here in Los Angeles, they run junior camps.
Yeah.
Is that something? Is that something?
Yeah. I mean, I think the more, going back to what's important to you in terms of, what's important to the prospect. If the coach was important to me, then I would want to put myself in front of the coach as much as possible so that I could, have some time with this person and really make a determination about, I want to spend 4 years with them.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I would say, yes, get out there to one of the camps so you can spend time with the coaches. And, a camp is sort of like a really good trial run because you're spending the night at the dorms, you're on campus, you're practicing all day or playing. And so I think that's a good opportunity for the prospect both ways, right?
Yeah.
It's a good opportunity both ways.
It's funny. I went to when I was a kid, I think I was 11 or 12 years old, I went to Stanford golf camp.
Same.
I never went there, guys.
Yeah.
I probably should have gone.
I went to ASU like 4 times.
I probably should have gone to like a JC college junior camp or something. That's really more my style. Castillo asked, do you think it's ever too late to start introducing yourself to coaches?
I don't think it's too late.
Yeah.
I think
transfers happen.
Right. And now with the transfer portal, I don't know if we could speak on that, but with the transfer portal, which the point of me talking about that is it facilitates transferring. Okay. So the transfer portal makes it easy to transfer, which obviously then is going to encourage people to transfer. They don't have to jump through a lot of hoops anymore. So if more people are transferring, that means that more spots, last minute spots are opening up.
Right.
If people are transferring, then that roster spot's open and I either got to fill it pronto or I'm going to wait a year and, for the next recruiting class to come through.
And it's just never a bad thing to just be nice to people and just shake hands. Not right now. But it's just, you never know what the future is going to hold, and to know more coaches is not a bad thing. Okay. So,
right.
Do you guys look at junior college players in recruiting? Is that that might be too personal there?
I could speak about general college coaches.
Okay.
And yes, junior colleges are considered. I have a few colleagues who are close friends who are junior college coaches, and I'm in touch with them pretty much constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people generally think that they're off the radar if they're playing at a JC, but there's a lot of JC transfers out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of JC transfers.
Nathaniel, my own experience, when I was playing at SC, we had like 3 guys get injured, and we were running super low on our team. We ended up getting a kid from College of the Canyons, and he ended up being the number 2 collegiate player in the country.
Right.
Playing for SC, like literally was a walk-on that ended up being.
Love that.
Matt Kuchar was number 1, and Alex was number 2, and he was on our team. Yeah. So
right.
He played a year at junior college, and he was.
Like a lot of those players can really surprise you because, like, they have no expectations.
Yep.
On
and
them.
They're hungry.
And they're hungry. They know how to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of times, I think for a lot of junior golfers, just kind of look at your own situation and see how your situation is actually an advantage.
Okay. That's a great
How
point.
do I have the advantage as a JC player? How do I have the advantage as a walk-on? Yeah. All these girls around me have pressure from scholarship dollars or whatever else. Maybe they've had like a prestigious junior career, but what part of my personality or my situation is advantageous to me?
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great way. Just perspective, right? How
right.
to, you can better yourself always. Bob Last, can you please explain how the portal works?
Yeah. So really the whole point of me bringing up the portal, was because prior to last year, there was like a whole kind of checks and balances process that had to occur for a player to transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach could put all kinds of restrictions on the transfer. I've heard of things like, because sometimes it's not so pretty, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And, coaches can do things like put restrictions on any prior opponent school. Okay, so that means that any tournament you played in on that team since you played, so for 2 years, any team that played in any tournament that you played in, you couldn't transfer there. Okay, so those kinds of things used to go on, and now then there was like a permission to contact, so there was a whole process. But basically now the prospect can just enter themselves into the database and they're eligible to transfer.
Right.
But when they enter themselves on the database, they do put up the risk of losing their scholarship.
Right.
So their scholarship might not get renewed depending on the coach.
Okay.
So I think Bobby Laskin asked that one. Yeah. So essentially the player just has to enter themselves onto the portal and then they can transfer.
There you go. Leftgen, what is more desirable to a college coach? A strong student who is A strong student who's a 3 handicap or a mediocre student who is a scratch player?
It depends on what the school is looking for at the time.
Yeah.
Right? So some years, right, college coaches, there might be graduating their number 1. So they might be more likely to go after that mediocre student, but high skill, right?
Yeah.
If a coach has already inked a couple really strong, players and they're, just kind of looking to fill a roster spot, then maybe they'll go with the higher ability student. It kind of just depends on timing. But being a good student is just never going to hurt you. Let's just say that one right now. Being a good student is never going to hurt you.
Yeah, it sounds like it's very situational. But the good student deal, all the recruiters that I've talked to, they just talk about how important it is to have good grades because it just opens up. You have way more opportunity of getting into schools than if your grades aren't, as good as they can be.
Right. And then there's academic scholarships too, right? Yeah. So a lot of schools have academic scholarships. So if you can, if you can get in some academic money somewhere, coach might be more likely to take you at your dream school, right? If you don't have to take up a whole lot of, athletic scholarship dollars, a coach might be more inclined to take you. It's never going to hurt you.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a couple more here.
Brady's got one. He's got a good one. Advice to college players on when is the right time to transfer? What are players getting wrong in thinking it's time? When is the right time to transfer? If we're talking about like time of year.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Time of year.
Fall.
Yeah. So the common times of year to kind of declare that you're going to transfer are the beginning of spring quarter. So players will usually report back middle of January. That's a common time to declare it because then you have all of spring to play, hopefully, and kind of bolster your numbers a little bit. But there have been players, we've all gotten the emails. All the coaches get emails all year long. In the fall, I intended, but most of the I think coaches receive the most emails right there in January, February, some in March.
Cool.
Are players overreacting? Yeah. Good one. Oh, no time, not time of year. Are players reacting? Okay, so I think Brady's asking. I think he's asking if players are too quick to say I'm going to transfer.
Uh-huh.
I think that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing that's like big time on the rise that it used to not be. John, when you and I played, it was like,
she's back. She's alive.
No time limit's gonna keep us silent here.
No, man. It's like we get into these things and we start rolling with it and you don't realize how long it is. But
I know. Yeah.
It doesn't matter, like as long as you're okay with it and everybody else obviously is okay with it because they keep asking great questions. So
Yeah.
Brady was talking about, like the overreacting and what was happening with people starting to, bounce out. So
yeah.
More of that.
And I think I think we started talking about how that's more of a trend now. Yeah. And I think I heard you say a minute ago that frankly you don't think people really know what they're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And I just see that as such a product of like how our culture just generally has evolved over the last 20 years, which is like if I don't like something, I'm just going to go somewhere else.
I'm just going to hit this
You know,
end button right up here. If you say something I
yep,
don't like, I'm going to hit that end button. Yeah. It's
yep,
not, yeah, it's not like, let's just talk. Let's
yeah. And the
figure it.
fortitude and the grit and the hanging in there in tough times. You know, I remember some tough times in college, you know, when I wanted to quit.
Yeah.
And I think that just the culture has kind of changed, you know, of human beings. You know, I'm not even really talking about any college golf right now. I think human beings just kind of think that they need to tailor their world around them versus tailoring their self around, you know, and growing from situations, you know, blooming where they're planted. You know, they just want to plant themselves somewhere else.
Yeah.
And they miss out on a lot of opportunities to grow, frankly.
Grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Is never greener.
Yeah. Solia asked, how difficult, easy is it to transfer from junior college to D1? What's the
Good
process?
question.
Yeah, what's the process
Good
of going
question.
from junior college to D1? And
Yeah, I'm glad that question came up. Uh, the answer is the process is pretty much the same, where coaches will go to like the junior college championship, right? The final championship, and they'll watch you play.
mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that's just you know, sometimes that's a little bit disruptive to the team, I think, you know, because you're still with your team and you're trying to win a championship. So that gets kind of tricky. Um, but the process is actually the same, right? At writing the coach and then corresponding with the coach and the coach actually coming out to watch you at times. Uh, you know, the process is actually quite similar.
Okay. Bobby Laskin asked here, do you think the portal is a power switch to the players? Would you like the portal to go away?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Makes it difficult for a coach, I bet, you know what I mean, in terms of trying to fill out a
Yeah.
roster, or and that probably falls right in the line of also like now that they allow amateurs to go to qualifying school. I bet
Mm-hmm.
you know, you recruit a really good player right now, and you know you might get 1, maybe 2 years, and it's like, see you later. You know, they're
Yeah.
turning pro. That makes it really tough on these coaches trying to figure out who they're gonna, you know, try to recruit. And say you don't recruit somebody because you think that really good player is going to be there for 3 years, 4 years, and they leave after one. Now, you know, now you're upside down.
Right.
You guys have a really
Yeah.
tough job, Gina. It's
Yeah. You know, that particular situation, I'm kind of lucky. Well, I can't talk about myself. See,
yeah.
I get like
We're not going to talk about
into
you.
the conversation.
Yeah.
Um, the Power Five schools, okay, UCLA, USC, Georgia, Alabama, they have a huge problem with that.
Yeah.
And there's really kind of like a headbutting war going on, sort of, between the LPGA and
The NCAA.
I think college coaches, because really the LPGA wants the best talent,
Yeah.
and they've kind of facilitated getting that talent, you know, or attracting that talent. Um, you know, when they had the Q series, they had that exemption for the top five, um, you know, college golfers or whatever, to skip all the way to the end, you know,
Yeah.
and that's just like killing college programs left, right, and center. So, back to the original question, which was the transfer portal, or, you know, the Q school thing.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard for the Power Fives to get a player for 4 years and, um, you know, build a team that's, you know, I was on a team with the same players pretty much the whole time. And now it's kind of like you know, the guy to your right might not be there in a couple of weeks, or the
Right.
girl to your left might be gone in a year, and you don't get that like that good solidarity, which is why so many kids, which is really like the one thing that I hear a lot of alums everywhere kind of say is, you know, I loved my team, and I loved being on a team, and I loved you know, the camaraderie,
Yeah.
and that is sadly taking, you know, that's taking the brunt of all of this movement to transferring and turning pro early. Like the best part about college is suffering because of some of these things,
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad to
some
see.
of these new processes and whatever.
Yeah. It's kind of sad to see, but I
Yeah.
don't, it's just, that's been the trend, right? And I don't know. You hope it somehow
Yeah.
goes back another way or something like that. But Solely had a backup question. Pac-12 schools recruit among junior golf or not a chance? I can answer that. It goes back to what I said earlier.
Go for it.
It goes back to what I said earlier about, you know, I played at USC, and we took a junior college player that turned out to be the number 2 collegiate player in the country. So I think that people are always, I almost think it's not an advantage, but you know, we have a couple really good junior colleges here in Southern Cal, especially the area I'm in Los Angeles. And, you know, say that situation does pop up, it's a lot easier to bring a kid in that's only like 30 minutes from the school than trying to bring somebody all the way in from across the country. You know, there's something to that. So I think that the coaches are always kind of keeping their eyes open, especially if somebody's been playing really well. Play well. That fixes everything. There's your answer.
Just play better.
Well. Yeah, just play better. Any good tips from Magali? Any good tips to work on mental game during the time off from the golf course? I think I could take this one.
Go
any
for
good
it.
tips to work on mental game during the time off from? I think I like my players doing a lot of meditation. There's a lot of you know, especially Magali. I know your kid, and he knows what meditation not podcast, but apps that I like to use and stuff like that. But definitely meditating can only help you. It'll probably help you more so also with getting through this whole situation. We've never been in this situation in our lives. I mean, this is the reason we're even having this conversation with Gina right now, is because what this is really doing is marking and recording a time in history right now. Like, we're going to look back on this in 10 years and 20 years and be like, why were they doing these live with Leary's? I mean, if you really think about it, and then we can say that that was a timestamp of really, it was because of this coronavirus. You know what I mean? We could see what the times were like. And yeah, so to that point, I think a lot of meditation stuff would be really good for you right now. Play well, easy to say. Yeah, it's just, but at the end of the day, whether you do or not, the ones that did play well, that's, you know, they reap the rewards. It is easier said than done, though. Bob Lasting, Saddleback was a great feeder to USC. Gavin Reed, Ben Miller. Yeah, absolutely. Saddleback's a great one. I think College of the Canyons is a great one also. Thanks, guys. Got to get back to work. Okay, have a good day at work there. The best part of the quarantine.
Hey,
We
Darren.
appreciate that. We
Hey,
appreciate
Darren.
that. 10 years later, Leary's on the senior tour caddying for Kevin Stadler. That's what I'm going to be doing. That's my retirement.
You could, John. You got like the best swing I've seen on an instructor.
Well, I appreciate that. Darren Falk. Hey, what's going on, Darren?
I saw a good one. Oh, on the mental game one. You know, the thing that kind of pops into my mind about the mental game thing is compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that like I see come up a lot. You know, when you're in class and you got a test back and you failed it, and then you got to go qualify.
Yeah.
You know, just kind of being where you are, wherever you are, just be there.
Yes.
You know, if you're, you know, you go from campus and you drive to practice, let that car ride be the time when you just kind of let everything go that happened at school, and vice versa. If you have a terrible round on the course, don't let it ruin the entire rest of your day. Just wherever you are, kind of be there,
Recognize the moment. Try to recognize the moment that you're in. And that's a big thing that I talk about as well, is just recognize the moment. If you're feeling angry, hey, this is what angry feels like, right? If you're happy, hey, this is what happy feels like. Cool. So, and live it. So I don't know how we got there, but we got there. And I should probably try to get like Rick Sessinghouse on talking about some mental stuff, or,
There you go.
I think we should have something like that.
Keith can facilitate that. Yeah. Keith's still there, isn't he?
He's
still there.
Attaboy. Keep your head where your feet are. I like that a lot. That's right.
Yeah, good one.
That's a good one there. So, hey, Gina, I really appreciate you doing this.
For sure.
Guys, if there's anything that, and girls, if there's anything that we went over that, you thought was somewhat important and you want to hear it again, like I said, I started a YouTube channel. It's called JRL Golf Academy. We're uploading everything there. It takes a second. My best friend that's doing this, he and his wife just had a kid like 3 days ago. So he's trying to do the uploads between, baby feeding and everything. So it's going to take a minute, but we had our first video up here today. So we appreciate you all tuning in. I can't thank Gina enough for coming on here and doing this and doing what she does.
My pleasure.
I'm so fortunate to have her as a friend more than anything. So thank you again,
John.
So, all right, guys, have a great evening, everybody. Have a great evening.
Okay.
Thanks for coming in, guys. Gina, we will talk to you later.
All right. See you, John.
Bye. Thanks for watching, everybody, the JRL Golf Academy. Please make sure to link and comment down below. Make sure you subscribe and turn on that little bell for notifications. And we look forward to seeing you on the next JRL Golf Academy.